This is exciting. All right, we're going to start just by general introductions. My name is Telfer. I'm the co-founder and director of the Christian Worldview Film Festival. But I have dabbled in other media production as well, but not as important as all these guys up here. So I'm going to be moderating today. So we're going to just go down the row, and you can each introduce yourself and kind of tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Let's give this a try. All right, great. So my name is Brandon Hollingsworth, and I'm the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Operations Officer at Brainy Pixel Productions. And we are a Christian animation and production studio based out of North Alabama.
I'm George Escobar, and I am formerly with Focus on the Family up until December. And just left that because the Lord gave me 3 jobs. I'm the CEO of Trust Point Studios, venture partner with Idealist Advent, and then my own Advent production film group. And I make feature films and documentaries.
Yes, documentaries. Love them. My name is Mark Miller, and I work here with the Kendrick brothers and done post-production supervising and producing. And yeah, I think I represent probably the artificial part of artificial intelligence on the panel today, so glad to be here.
Well, I'm pretty excited about this today. We wanted to talk about AI at this year's event, and I think we're going to be talking about it at every event, probably from this day forward, because we're embarking on a journey into the future of filmmaking in a realm where creativity meets cutting-edge technology. And as we delve into this intersection of AI and filmmaking, we're going to uncover how this powerful combination of reshaping the art of storytelling and challenging the very essence, really, of creativity. These are some of the things we want to talk about. And then today, I believe we stand at the crossroads of tradition as well as innovation. And as Christian filmmakers, we're entrusted with the divine task, really, of weaving narratives that inspire, challenge, and uplift the human spirit. In our hands, we hold not just cameras and scripts, but the ability to illuminate the darkness with the stories of faith, hope, and love. And so as we embark on this journey together, let us ponder a pivotal question. How can we harness AI, not as a replacement of the human touch, but as an extension of our creativity, guided by our Christian values and a moral compass? The narrative of AI and filmmaking is not just about efficiency or novelty. It's about using every gift, every tool at our disposal to glorify God through our craft. And as we delve into the possibilities that AI presents, let us remain anchored in our faith, ensuring that this new digital frontier serves to enhance, not overshadow, the human essence at the heart of our stories. So today, I invite you to, we're going to join our panelists here in exploring how we as Christian filmmakers can embrace AI as a collaborator in our mission to reflect the light of Christ in a world eager for hope. And so together, let us envision a future where technology and spirituality walk hand in hand, creating films that not only entertain, but also enlighten. Films that do more than just speak the mind, they touch the soul. And this was a nice little introduction from ChatGPT. I did. I said, hey, I need an introduction for a panelist discussion at a Christian film festival on the intersection of AI and Christian filmmaking. So how fun is that? I thought it was pretty good. Were you convinced? You're like, dude, this guy's rocking it.
I think it sounded a little fishy.
Yeah, I was a little fishy. Okay, so as I'm looking at this here, we're going to look, you guys are voting, right? So we got 15. What are some practical biblical principles I can use to judge whether or not to use AI in a particular part of film production? I'm going to just turn to Brandon first on this, because Brandon did a class on ethical AI, so that kind of feeds into that, and then, so we'll just start there. Yep.
These mics are crazy. Repeat the question, please, sir.
Yeah, what are some practical biblical principles that I can use to judge whether or not to use AI in a particular part of film production?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, does it glorify God, right? Are you using this tool in a way that you can draw a direct line to glorify your Creator? And when you unpack that as a Christian, it can mean several kind of subpoints. The first is that, am I robbing someone of doing their job that they've been called to do, right, for Christ? So at Brainy Pixel, one of the things that we've been working on for the past year is a way to leverage AI in an ethical manner, in that where we've got this system segregated from the web, it's not crawling and snatching information or data or images from other people who've worked really hard to create something that's beautiful or wonderful or glorious. And so we're looking at it as a tool, right? So, you can hurt someone with a hammer, or you can build a house for someone with a hammer. So we're trying to use AI as just a tool and not use it as a way to prevent someone from doing a job. I know a lot of people are afraid about that. They're scared about that. And so I would ask yourself, is my use of this tool something where I can directly glorify God?
Yeah, George.
Yeah, there's a basic question I always ask myself in every film that I'm working on, and projects that are presented to me. And I contend, and some of you have already heard this from me in previous talks, that you can only make two kinds of movies. There's all sorts of genres, of course, but the only two films you can make, and it's been said here and other places, is that will it push people away from Christ and knowing Him, or will it pull them in? And so as you begin to explore AI, always be asking that question with whatever new widget or new tool capability it offers. Those two questions first, and then of course the accuracy of the content that you're getting back. So if you have any expertise in any particular field, start with that. Ask it a question that you know the answer to. And if it keeps giving you back good results, then yeah, you're in a good path.
Mark, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to think about that particular concept. I mean, there's the intellectual property part, I think, is one big, huge thing, is how much are you gleaning from other people's intellectual property, and how much are you claiming that the end product as your own intellectual property. So that's a developing kind of issue and something to think about. And I also like what you said about just the fact that these are tools at our disposal, and I think just as any tool, we would consider the same biblical principles, to apply. So this is just one of the tools in our toolbox, in the same way we use anything else. So,
Yeah, and it's a powerful tool. It's not just a hammer. It's more like a table saw. And if you've ever met woodworkers missing a finger, it was probably on a table saw. It was a power tool. It wasn't a handsaw. So why don't we also just pause for a bit from the questions and just briefly share some ways that you are using AI. And we'll start with you, Mark.
We had to create some posters for production of the film that we shot this last summer for video games, and it was a pretty easy way to just kind of make up some kind of crazy video game and get multiple different options of things we could use, and quickly put up. These are going to be thrown up on the wall, and so we don't have to worry about any copyright issues or that sort of thing related to you using someone else's game, licensing, that sort of thing. So that was a pretty fun way to do it. Some of the other on-screen kind of display things we had to do for the movie involved lists of hundreds of sports equipment manufacturing parts. And so I asked ChatGPT, hey, give me a list of 500 kinds of products and SKU numbers, random SKU numbers that a equipment manufacturing company might make. So that made quick work of that. I didn't have to come up with all of those.
I've used AI pretty much across the board, from testing concept ideas to making lists for titles. But I've used it for storyboards, concept art, and I first encountered ChatGPT back in November 2019. I woke up, got this email announcing this, and I said, wow, this could be interesting. So I spent that weekend, 48 hours, curating ChatGPT to write a book on screenwriting. And at the end of 48 hours, it gave me 350 pages. And it was really good. And so I decided, okay, I'm not going to publish this because it's too, too unknown, too dangerous. But then I saw an opportunity to write a book called Screenwriting for Christians. And how do I do that? Using ChatGPT or Claude 3 now. So I just began to transcribe all of the talks that I've given and all the courses. I used ChatGPT to actually do the transcription and organize it for me, and remove any duplications. And so now it's really helping to write a book that is way better than the original one from my perspective, because it really points to, well, how do we craft stories that have the same level of teachings that Hollywood pushes, but from a Christian worldview. And ChatGPT and Claude, they were right there with me. They did not give any bias. So it's still a work in progress. I was hoping to get it published by this conference and actually give it away, but maybe next year.
Okay, look forward to that.
And for Brainy, what we're doing, it's clearly in two camps right now. First is the experimental phase, where we are trying to build this system that's kind of off the web. It's kind of federated. It's our own little thing that we're cooking on and have been for the last 11 months, kind of like an R&D type project. The other, we use it fairly often in our common day practice, but we use it to supplement where we stink, right? And so we openly say that we stink at marketing. We do. Brainy Pixel is horrible at marketing. So I'm sure I'll get thousands of cards from people out there that are going, ooh, I'm a marketing firm. But for now, we leverage a lot of what AI can do to help us with marketing, creating social media texts, crafting our messaging, really supplementing where we feel we're weak and we don't have a specific individual on our team that's gifted and talented to do those things. So we're really trying to, again, keep it in this tool mentality. It's a tool in the tool belt that can help us be better for the cause of Christ, but we're not using it to the exclusion of someone that God may bring into our fold that we can actually employ or provide, dollars in their pocket for. So,
Great. Can you bring up another question here? I don't seem to have the ability to control what goes up next. Okay, while AI could be harmful, it also could be used for a lot of good. In your opinion, where are the uses of AI that will actually bring improvements to the craft? And by the way, just so you know, the word technology, does anybody know what the word, any of the panelists know? Okay, technology. Techne comes from craft. It's the knowledge of craft. And so when we talk about biblical technologies, the Bible has always really affirmed mankind developing technologies all the way back in Genesis. Otherwise, we'd still be just living out under the trees. So even if you think about the initial tent making, there's a lot of technology that goes into building a tent. You have to make poles. You got to have fabric. So all through the scriptures, it really acknowledges technology. But technology can be used for good in the hammer illustration that Brandon gave, or for evil. So where do you guys think that where are the benefits? Where are the cautions? And George, you can take that one.
I work with a lot of actors, and they always ask me, so is it going to replace me? And my answer is, if you let it, because with the advent of like the Unreal gaming environment, 3D, of course, meta-human technology, as well as, of course, AI, and some of you who've been following it, you've seen how advanced it's become just in the last year. And so right now there's a huge scare with voiceover artists, for example, because AI does a really good job of getting your project to a level where it sounds almost indistinguishable from a voiceover, a professional voiceover narrator. And I've actually worked with both. I've used AI voiceover just to make sure that the narration that we're creating for a documentary actually sounds good. But then I will hire a voice actor, because you can never talk to the AI to actually get the right inflection, get the right style or attitude that you need for a particular phrase. So that's one aspect. The other, if you're a young actor, I believe, or any actor who's just trying to get into acting, you almost need to really understand and embrace where the entry points are. For example, do you want to have a full body scan so that now you're a 3D digital actor and all of your motion is captured as well as your voice, and now you're a digital actor who can be licensed for whatever movie? You know, you can end up in 1,000 movies if you do that, versus maybe 3 or 4 in your career, because auditioning is hard. So those are the trade-offs that has to be considered. But it's coming, and that's what the industry is moving towards. You just need to recognize it. So you just have to be that much better.
Yeah, I would echo what George is saying. I think he's spot on. However, currently one of the things that AI does not do very well is it is not very consistent for the most part. Now, we are seeing the emergence of tools just in the past 2 or 3 weeks, like Sora, where we're seeing more consistency, and I think that trend will continue. We're going to see that go up. But consistency and iterative processes, AI does not do that very well from one take to the next. And so as an actor, an actress, as a voice actor, voice actress, those are things where you need to get really good at, right? And nail what your directors are asking for, and be open to taking that direction and pivoting and delivering that emotional response. I don't think AI is going to be able to do that very well for a while. I would say probably 3 to 5 years. But as George says, it is coming. Another thing is that one of the things that AI does not do well is visually, keeping it consistent in a visual manner, just from frame to frame, or for us, we do a lot of comic books as well, from a comic panel to a comic panel. It does not create a character and then lock onto that character very well, so that that character remains consistent throughout a production. So that is at least a helpful thing for now. Will that change? Probably, but right now it doesn't do that well. So.
Great. George and I were having a conversation just before we stepped up here. Many people may not know who Marshall McLuhan is, but he wrote a book, his seminal work called Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man. He's known as the grandfather of media literacy, and not opposed to technology, but also helping us to understand how we interact with it. He was the one who coined the phrase, the medium is the message. In his book, though, he talked about the extensions of man, how technology helps us to extend further, but it's things we can do already. We can just do them almost with like superhuman powers. But one of the things he brought up in the book was oftentimes when we're geeking out about, he didn't use those terms, but when we're geeking out over the new technologies, we are sometimes blind to what might be amputated. So that kind of fits into this. So what do you think could possibly be amputated in the creative process by an over-reliance on the new AI gadgets?
So I think the creative process, I think itself, it could become endangered, right? I think people could become so dependent upon an easy way to generate beautiful imagery or amazing scripts or marketing text that we begin to kind of forget what it is to be creative, right? And that's really a big danger, because God made us in his image. He is the supreme creator, and he made us creative in his image. So we need to work really hard to foster that, right? And I don't think AI will ever be able to have that spark. I think that spark is a divine gift from our Father. And so we as Christians now have the opportunity, as Hollywood and secular sources begin to rely on AI, they'll become less creative. We have the opportunity to become more creative because we're connected to the source.
Yeah, that is the reality of what's coming. That we have the advantage of knowing the source of all creativity, the creator, and the fact that there's going to be a premium and a desire for human crafted content. And so that's where we need to understand what the landscape will be and sort of not be blind to using AI, but also make sure that we support one another and collaborate, because it's that human collaboration that will yield the kind of stories that the Lord is instilling in each one of the collaborators.
If I got a footnote, a question that was asked me yesterday after my panel, or the workshop rather, was about that very thing, about collaboration. And that is something that we can really hold tightly, is that currently the way we do business in this industry is people do business with people, right? People work with people that they want to work with. So be the kind of person that people want to work with you. And I think you'll never lack for work, right? So AI is not that, never will be that. So that's something we can hold on to very distinctly and uniquely.
I mean, the fact that this tool exists and is not going away, I think should encourage each of us in whatever pursuit or craft we're in to get better and better at doing it. And there's no excuse really anymore to turn in a one sheet or something with poor grammar or poorly worded or misspelled, that sort of thing, because the tools exist for us to be able to create polished material, whether you want to informal language or formal language, you can put that in there. To kind of take one little step back conceptually, I think is interesting. There was an article in Wired magazine about the founders of OpenAI that came out late last year, and it was interesting. I just wrote down here because the perspective behind most technologists, most people developing technology and that sort of thing, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I think the majority of them have the drive or the desire to fix problems in the world. So all of these people creating these things have in their mind that there are problems in the world, problems with humanity, and how can we solve them? And for a materialist perspective, you use technology to solve those problems. So, I mean, this is in their words, that in that article it says the founders assume that AI's trajectory will surpass whatever peak biology can attain, and believe in a superintelligence that can address humanity's problems better than humanity can. There's a great book called The Geek Heresy by Kentaro Toyama, who worked for Microsoft, who did a lot of development of particularly education, using technology in education. But he became disheartened with it because he realized that all of this technology didn't bear the fruit, didn't solve the problems they thought it would solve, because he realized that it was actually heart issues. It wasn't just technological problems. So we as believers, I mean, until hearts are redeemed, technology, AI, whatever, is not going to benefit society. So we are in the best position as followers of Christ, as people who are connected with the Father, who understand the God of creation, who also have been given that same spirit made after his image. So we are in probably the best position to use this technology for God's glory and to solve problems on this planet while we're at it. So I see this as an opportunity for us as believers to step up our game in many ways.
Yeah, I want us to remember that each of us came to a place where the emptiness in our heart was filled by the Holy Spirit when Lord Jesus said, I am the way. And we accepted that. Imagine your audience in that dark theater or in their living room, and they've got that emptiness too. And the work that you've crafted, you maybe use some AI behind it, but ultimately, if the Holy Spirit is in it, he's going to reach out and grab hold of that emptiness and not let that audience go. And nobody can create that from an artificial intelligence. It's going to have to come from the work that the Lord has given us, and that we are obedient to follow through. And that is something that Hollywood will never, ever match. And I think that's why the opportunities that are before us now is so profound and so intense. And I hope that's the reason you're here, is because you want to be able to do that for the audience.
And one of the things to remember that is these are powerful tools, they're amazing tools, but a new tool in itself is not going to solve all the problems. It's not, sometimes we just think if I had a new app or a new plugin or a new tool, I'm going to fix the problems. But getting a new camera still doesn't change the fact if you've never read the 5 C's of cinematography. It's like, yeah, great, you got some really new shiny equipment, but if you don't know the rudiments of how to tell a story through a lens, then the new equipment is not going to help you. And something you brought up too about this idea of really a humanist perspective is looking to AI to bring about an evolution of really humanity or the world. And the caution and one thing you need to remember, generative AI is not generating anything out of nothing. Only God does that. God is the only one who has thought everything up out of absolutely nothing and spoke it into existence. And it's that same God who we learn in Exodus gives his spirit to craftsmen to enable them to do craft. So this is one of the things we have to be cautious. If you lean only on the tool, but you're not going to the creator who not only created humanity, but gave us the ability to make tools and use tools. But and what George said is just priceless. If we don't have the Spirit of God and that spark that Brandon was talking about, those are the things that AI can never replace. So let's look at this next question. I'd like to see the next question. I know there's probably more questions than 2.
While you're waiting for it,
Okay.
The fact is that one of the reasons I think that people often feel scared, I guess, about their own job security, this sort of thing, in the face of AI, might be a little bit of this idea of limited good, that we're going to run out of ideas because computers are going to come up with all these ideas. Well, this isn't true. There's no end to good ideas. God is a creative God, and there is no limit to that. So I think as long as we are pursuing ideas rather than just the technology, that we'll be able to move forward ahead of that. And we may have to change our jobs, but we'll have new ideas.
Okay, talking about jobs. What jobs in the film industry will most quickly be replaced by AI?
I'm going to be giving a talk on storyboarding, and it's one of the first ways that you can actually visualize your story. And will storyboard artists go away? Well, I think the ones that really want to continue practicing that craft will now be able to extend their discipline tenfold. They'll be that much more productive. Or you can sort of run away and say, oh, well, I don't want to do this anymore because some technology has taken my place. For me, in the ways that I've been using it, it's actually allowed me to collaborate with more people, contact more people to say, hey, I've got this concept. Here's some concept art I used with ChatGPT or Leonardo AI, and could you work with me on this? This is some of my rough ideas. And again, it's how you want to use it to collaborate and to enhance the project with a professional working on it instead of a machine.
Philip, could you read the question again for the audience?
Yes, what jobs in the film industry will most quickly be replaced by AI?
So I don't think the panel has the answer to this question necessarily, because I think the answer to this question lies inside each and every one of us. There are film producers, there are directors, there are financiers, there are people who work as actors and actresses and voiceover people in this room, and it's up to us to answer this question. We're the decision makers, right? We can decide in our films, in our products, in our projects, what do we want to use AI for? And we can use storyboarders, or we can use actors that are enhanced by AI, they're supplemented by AI, or we can make the decision as creators and as leaders to replace people. That's our decision. So if we decide we want to do what's biblical, what's ethical, and what's moral, then my answer is never, right? No jobs will ever be replaced, but all jobs will potentially be enhanced.
And, well, also, just, has anybody heard the term Luddite? Luddite? Okay, so Luddite, this is a historical moment when mechanical looms began to replace people who used to weave by hand. And the mechanical looms could just do it better, faster, and overnight, entire populations of workers lost their job. It was very hard for them. They didn't even know how to figure out how do we pivot, and they had no way to pivot. And so they began to rise up against the new technologies, and they actually began to go and destroy the looms, thinking this is how we're going to stop and keep us from losing it. Well, they landed in jail is what happened. So that was not a great step, you know. So, but anyway, that's where we get the term Luddite, because they were called Luddites after a fictional leader. But but there's no stopping the changing tech. All of us here are advantaged by the technologies, and all along the way, things continue to change and shift. The cool thing about this generation and this audience here, you're all so young. Most of you are young, I know. And but especially if you are young, if you're a digital native, that means you've grown up with all the digital tools, as opposed to all of us up here. We're all digital immigrants. So this has changed, and we've watched the change. It's actually a little bit harder, but here's how the two work together. Is you as digital natives actually have the ability to pivot very quickly with the changing technologies. You've already proven that. And whether it comes from gig work to whatever. But sometimes you lack the wisdom of what it means to stay steady and learn craft. And you're going to learn that from the digital immigrants. But we're going away. We're not going to last forever. So we actually do have a responsibility in this transitional generation to connect. You need to connect with older people, and older people need to connect with younger people. And we need to we need to navigate this together. So, you ready for another question? Or does anybody else want to take a stab at jobs?
Quick personal story. How many here know the term desktop publishing? Do you guys remember that? Okay. What about typesetting? Okay. Way back before desktop publishing came online, you had to have professional typesetters. They made like $40 to $60 an hour. This is in the 80s, so that was a lot of money. And my uncle ran a company called Eastern Graphics in Washington, D.C., and he had a whole 2 floors in this very prestigious building. In 1984, when the Mac Plus came out, I went to him and his board, presented that, and a laser printer that printed 300 dots per inch. And they laughed me out of the room, and I said, your business is in danger because of these 2 pieces of technology. And they said, how can, 300 DPI, we are producing 1,200, 2,400 DPI, we got, we're professionals. In a year later, they were out of business. And sadly, my uncle became an alcoholic, he lost his business, and he died very soon after. I know, it's really sad. But
I'm edified.
Sounds like it, George, sounds like it.
But my point is this. It was presented to him, and he could have pivoted. He could have, and chose to just bury his head in the sand and cause a lot of pain in his family and for others. His workers could have pivoted over that year. So just a word of caution that there's technology out there, and we need to understand it and figure out, okay, how can I use this, one, to collaborate, but also ultimately the Lord has given us this tool. What does he want us to do with it?
Yeah, I think that's really important to understand. We have an omniscient God. He knows everything from the beginning to the end. AI did not sneak up on him, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for it, and we're called to use all gifts for his glory and our good.
And there will be a great disruptor that'll be more disrupting than the Tower of Babel. And Jesus is going to return. And when he does, it all's moot at that point, right? Okay, so the next question, how ethical is using AI in production which will jeopardize the roles, positions of individuals? This is kind of a redundant question, but who have been faithful in honing their craft over several years. This is sort of what we've been talking about, so we could, if you have anything to add.
I just think it's up to the decision makers, right? If you want to choose profits over people, then, people are going to lose their jobs. But if you love your people, like Christ loves us, then you're going to want to shepherd those people. You're going to want to take care of those people. You're going to be a Christ-centered, you're going to be a Christ example to your people. So, don't choose profits over people.
One of the ways I've thought about this is, I think, apart from the ethical side, there are ethical concerns, but the idea of honing your craft, just to make an analogy of like cooking, is anybody here who makes your own mayonnaise? Wow, that's a surprising number of people who make your own mayonnaise. That's impressive. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that many. Okay, let's try a different product.
You didn't do your market research.
Yeah, I did. Wow. But the main thing, for the most part, most of us go to the store and we buy mayonnaise and we use it. And if someone eats your food and they ask you, hey, did you make your own mayonnaise? It's not shameful to say, no, I bought this mayonnaise. Now, if you want to make something that's exceptional and that is at another level, then you might want to go a little master chef it. Like, yeah, I made everything in this from scratch, from the original ingredients. And so there is something to artisan work, and I think that's important. When I would go to the store and we buy bread, but if I want really good bread, I'm going to find an artisan who's making that bread, and it's going to be a step up. It's going to be another level. So there's instances where there's kind of just manufactured, just stuff that has to get done. There's other things when you really want something special to it, then that's when you want to use the person who knows the craft.
There's a well-known author, Malcolm Gladwell. If you guys are familiar with his work, he wrote a book, 10,000 Hours to Mastery. He contends that it takes about 10,000 hours of practice in order to achieve a level of mastery. And so that question begs the point that, did I just waste 10,000 hours because I'm going to be replaced? Absolutely not. You've just invested 10,000 hours to be at a level of mastery that now when you use these tools, you'll know exactly how to use it properly and how to augment the hard work that you've already created, perhaps, or it's in concept stage, or be able to use it as a way to multiply some of the work that would have been tedious. Instead, now you can be more productive on the higher level artistry.
I just want to know what the subliminal connection between the film industry and mayonnaise is. Because every film set I've ever been on, they say if someone walks up, you say we're making a mayonnaise commercial, and now we're comparing mayonnaise to AI. So maybe a panel on that in the future.
Definitely. Well, this idea of artisan work and craftsmanship they're important discussions. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT about the mayonnaise, but all right, so we have another question here. After the recent union strikes, what protections were put in place to prevent AI from taking over film? Do you think the strikes accomplished their goals?
I follow that very closely. The strikes and the negotiations, it's a Band-Aid. It will only last for the next couple of years. And then the world will change again, and that has to be renegotiated. In the meantime, there's this 2-year period to really figure out from the union side what they really want, because they really didn't know. Just like they didn't know about streaming, they didn't know about DVDs. Usually artists, folks that are in the trades, they're huge laggards. They know how to use the tools, especially digital technology, but the other elements of filmmaking, they're too busy practicing their craft. But now they've got 2 or 3 years at best to really figure out how they need to move forward.
Yeah, I'm going to back up a little bit too, because another part of talking about craft, learning a craft, there's a new craft emerging, and that's prompt engineering. Because the AI is is responding to prompts. You give it a bad prompt, you're going to get, garbage in equals garbage out. And so the people are going to be using it most effectively as a useful tool already have to have some knowledge base to even know what type of prompt you're going to be supplying. And then, which has already been mentioned, it's going to continue to improve and get better, but you could be the best prompt engineer and you still may get garbage from what you're trying to accomplish because it's just a tool. And so once again, there's a lot. One of the things too, I got a chance to talk to George, the other panelists. I'll just have this discussion now. You already said it, we don't actually have to know everything about AI because nobody actually does right now, right? So this is great to be panelists and not have to be experts. We're actually, all these panelists here are on the journey with you, learning. Hopefully we'll learn faster than others. Okay, next question. Disney is using AI to deep fake entire people after they pass. Is that something you'd be comfortable with?
For me, personally, I would say that would be an ethical problem, right? Unless they own the rights to that person's image and can legally depict them after their death, that would be a moral and ethical quandary that I would have. My concern is how that impacts us in the social media space, but that's a whole nother question.
Yeah, what Disney's begging for are lawsuits. Unless people have assigned their rights to be in a Disney movie, either as an extra or a background or even one of the principal actors for the short-term gain of getting paid. And I think that's what Disney is trying to do is sort of straddle the fence. At the same time already investing quite deeply in AI.
Great. Okay, next question. Okay, these are similar. Where would you draw the line with using AI?
Well, I would just kind of hop back onto George's last statement for the folks in the room who you're worried about your physical representation in this space. I would be sure when it comes time to negotiate, make sure those terms are very clearly laid out in your contract. You know how they're going to use your likeness, not just in this particular project, but moving forward. And if they do want those lifetime rights, that should be you should be compensated fairly for that. So,
you used the term knowledge base just a few moments ago, and you now have the ability to actually create your own private knowledge base, so you can put the information that you want, and then from that, whenever you do a query, a prompt engineered query, you can restrict it to just that knowledge base. So you can enrich it with really, really good content and get good content out of it.
Yes. All right, so next question. If you believe it is okay to use AI in the story plotting process, do you believe AI should be credited as one of the writers of that production? And while you guys think about that, let me just say something. I don't know if Stephen Kendrick is here. Stephen, are you in the house? We had this conversation. I said, if the Kendrick brothers were dependent on AI to plot a story about prayer, so they prompt it. We want to make a story about prayer. I will tell you what it would not have given them. A little old lady in a closet praying for people. AI would not, because once again, it's based upon, it learns from what's out there, and that's just not out there, So they learned that there's a difference between the AI and I am. And when you know I am, he can tell you, this is the kind of story I want you to tell. And I'm sure that there were a lot of people telling the Kendricks, like, this movie is not going to fly. But you know what? That movie flew. And we're so great. So many people grateful around the world for War Room. So now that you've had time to think about that, okay, crediting AI in the writing process.
So for me, it would be how much is AI contributing to this script? And if I felt that it had contributed a substantial amount, then I probably would, because I'm crazy. But I would absolutely, I would credit AI in the credits for sure.
there are so many source materials that you would be drawing from, even if without AI, that informs your writing and the movies that you've seen, songs you've heard, that, well, yeah, you want to credit them too. I just wouldn't, first, I wouldn't use it for your script. You could, there are ways to use it properly, and maybe we should have a class on that. But yeah, it's just, you don't want to cross that line where AI is well, it can never be the heart and soul of your project, so why even try?
Yeah, we do need to become better storytellers, but AI is not going to do it. Amen. So that would be a failed attempt to make a shortcut, to extend yourself, and in the process you're going to amputate the very soul of what God is wanting to do in Christian filmmaking. But we do need to become better storytellers. We want to encourage you to do that. So AI in assisting, cleaning up your scripts. We did our first screenplay competition, and I'm like, there was quite a few typos and misspellings and things. I'm like, well, use AI for that, have it clean up your script so that it at least comes across professional. But so anybody want to take another step?
I'll say one other aspect of that is kind of a legal question. And interestingly, I was just reading about a Washington, D.C. District Court in August of last year. There was a case where someone was wanting to have a copyright claim to an AI-generated image, and that the copyright would belong to the program or the machine learning program that was used to do that. And the district court basically said, no, currently, at least, the way they interpret the law is that copyright can only be applied to things that were created by human, what do they call it? Human creativity, or that had that basis in human creativity. And so if you used AI to bring certain substantive elements to your script, you may have some legal problems there, that certain elements of your script would no longer be copyrightable by you, because at least in the terms of the U.S. law, you can't attribute it to anything else. So it would be public domain in that sense. So that's a legal thing to think about too, is how much do you want to own your intellectual property?
Well, this next question is exciting. What are you most excited about in regard to the integration of AI in this industry?
I'm excited to be able to use it to create concept art, and be able to convey the ideas that I have in my head, or what's been written from material that I've been reading, and then be able to share it with others very quickly. Now, does that mean, well, I'm no longer working with a visual artist, a production designer? No, I'm hoping that I can then secure the funding to then be able to hire those people to actually bring the project to life. So I see it as a great way to bring ideas in front of other people.
And I guess my answer would be that what I'm most excited about hasn't happened yet. And that is when we reach that point when the consistency, overall consistency of AI and the stylistic consistency of AI is to the point where you could actually string together multiple images in an animation or a comic book or a film and have that consistency across the board. That's what I'm really excited about. But we're not there yet. We're getting close. So,
Mark, what are you most excited about? He's ready to dance a jig up here.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'm excited about the opportunity for believers to participate in the development. And I remember hearing an IP officer, somebody for a company that secures intellectual property for media, talk about how the first layer of criteria, I guess, for when she chooses what's going to be acquired is whether she likes it or not. And I was like, oh, we need believers in that position across the board on every company on the planet that buys intellectual property. And I think the same thing for AI. Like, we need believers who are involved in the development and in that game, and particularly for these red flag teams that are part of kind of try to monitor bias in what it generates, choosing what's right and what's wrong, or what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. I think that's the opportunity for believers to really step into that and be a part of those teams. We need to be in those positions of influence.
I was in a team of inventors. We were making patent applications for predictive engines, predictive browsing, and recommendation engines, which was finally granted. Unfortunately, we were not the owners because we were working for a company, but my name is on it, and I now regret it because it has resulted in a deluge of really bad things that have happened through Amazon and Netflix. But at that time, I was not thinking it through.
Great. Well, we have used up our time for this AI panel. Let's give a hand to our AI panelists. Thank you so much for participating in this. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more discussion in the years ahead, in the days ahead, in the next weeks. Okay. All right. God bless you guys.